This channel is already jumping the shark. Today's topic, Penny has a problem with Sydney Sweeney's boobs. And my cameraman would like to let you know, he does not. Okay, before you click away, there's an actual discussion to be had about Sydney Sweeney's boobs. And we're going to be doing that. This is not going to be a giggle, ha, 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 check them out kind of video. Although I don't know what the editors are going to do, so they might be having some fun with this behind the scenes. So the first thing that we need to do is discuss sex symbols in Hollywood. That's how we've gotten to the discussion of Sydney Sweeney's boobs within politics. I'm not joking. Sydney Sweeney's boobs is a political topic now. You know, using the very broad spectrum of anything people want to argue about, claiming that it's political. But anyway, in order to understand Sydney Sweeney's boobs, we need to discuss the history of sex. I love saying that statement. It rolls off the tongue, audience. It rolls off the tongue. The term sex symbol was first used in the 1910s and 1920s to describe emerging film stars of the era. Most studios relied heavily on the looks and sex appeal of their actresses and actors in order to attract audiences. Now, doesn't that sound like my discussion about marketing and sexuality and marketing? It does, because it applies to this. The Sydney Sweeney boob topic actually hit like the crazy levels of it when I was making that video. We almost inserted this discussion into it because of that. And I'll explain how we got there. But anyway, the idea behind a sex symbol works with the marketing. Basically, you have a woman who is super sexually appealing and what the current generation is looking for in a woman, and she is plastered everywhere, showcasing her curves, her features, her booba. But it also applies to males. But the difference is this. Some of the most prominent sex symbols are Marilyn Monroe, while the most prominent sex symbol for men is things like James Dean and Marlon Brando. What's considered manly men and what's considered to be sexy for men. Abs or smoking a cigarette, rebelling against the law. It's the same concept, but from different angles. In the 1950s, the sex symbol was seen as the sexually ideal. All the women wanted to have those curves, have those breasts, have that butt. That's what they all wanted, supposedly. While in the 1960s, that exact same concept, the idea of a sex symbol, was flipped around and seen as an emancipation of bodies and the sexuality with the sexual revolution. So it was seen as a way of gaining power and to showcase what you want, but not as a ideal to achieve to, but as like, wow, we can do what we want because everyone wants this. Now that brings us to today, where movie stars are still used as sex symbols, even though it's not really referenced that way. It's almost in poor taste to call someone a sex symbol in this day and age. I mean, just think about this in the past, okay? I'm an older guy than I like to admit, but Jennifer Lopez considered a sex symbol on these lists here. Gwen Stefani was considered a sex symbol. Britney Spears notoriously had a genital slip. I'm trying to think of a word that won't get me banned. But it doesn't only apply to the women of the 2000s. Channing Tatum, Ryan Gosling, Ryan Reynolds. Ryan's apparently a very popular name to have as a sex symbol for a guy. And if you're wondering where I'm getting this list, if you decide that you want to disagree, it's actually on IMDb, who got rated as a sex symbol in the 2000s. That's pretty reputable as a location. I mean, it's really simple. When you have a sexy man or you have a sexy woman in a movie, they are then going to show up constantly within the trailer, and it's going to apply to our sexuality in marketing, where you're like, ooh, the sexy man, the sexy girl is in the movie. I'm hoping I can just enjoy seeing this eye candy on the screen, and maybe, there will be like a little cleavage, like a low top, like a V-cut or something, you know? And that's it. I mean, when you're younger, that's what you think. When you're older, you're going to go watch the pretty people act. So that brings us to the actual topic. Sydney Sweeney's boobs have become a political issue, which is hilarious because we are moving into an era where there is a group of people within mostly the United States. A lot of you guys like to think that this is worldwide. They're dealing with their own stuff. If you really want to look at something that's interesting, look at the feminist movement over in South Korea, because that is wild in comparison to what we're doing over here. But over here, we have a portion of the population that feels that women should be covering up. They should not be sexy. They should not be attractive. They should be the girl next door and not feel the need to be fit or wear makeup. On the other side, we have people who are constantly arguing that if you're in video games and movies and on screen, you should be a fantasized ideal version of that. Ideal men, ideal women. Just look at the Stellar Blade argument, which is the argument we had for sexuality and marketing. But Sydney Sweeney has been a huge topic because there's an argument to be made that Sydney Sweeney's popularity is based on her role in Euphoria. And her role in Euphoria, and I've watched Euphoria, is a very promiscuous woman who is not against throwing her breasts out for everyone to see, touch, and admire. And I guarantee I can Google it. I'm going to. Hold on. Got it. I can, we have footage. We could even do a sped up time lapse to show you. It took me about 2 minutes. In the entire series of Euphoria, there is 1 minute and 24 seconds in which Sydney Sweeney is topless, and that was discovered by the people of Reddit. So what I'm getting at is there is an argument to be made that a lot of her initial fame came out of that. That you had a younger audience watching Euphoria. Euphoria is not geared at 40, 50, 60-year-olds. Euphoria is geared towards like that 18 to 24 demographic. You have a woman who's rather top-heavy, and I'll get to that in a minute too. I'm not just saying that. That's not just me saying that, trust me. Who is fine showing off her assets for a television show. And I mean, one of my co-hosts on one of the podcasts makes a constant joke about Sydney Sweeney and why he's infatuated by her. And it's entirely because of her breasts. So that's kind of where she got her start. Now, if you actually look into Sydney Sweeney's response to the reaction to her breasts, she enjoys it. She actually tells stories about how in high school she wanted a breast reduction, but her parents told her, or her mother specifically told her, that she would regret it in college, and she agrees, referring to her breasts as her two best friends. If you look up the information on Euphoria and her response to the amount of time that she was topless, her response is she did it all willingly. No one ever forced her into a situation, and the few that she felt that her character wouldn't do or she just felt uncomfortable with, she was allowed to back out of. And she said it was actually quite different in stark contrast to other experiences that she has had in that situation. And when you look into it, she even continues to tell stories about how her grandparents saw season 2 of Euphoria and told her that she has the best tits in Hollywood. What I'm getting at is Sydney Sweeney seems perfectly fine flaunting her breasts for everyone to see, and basically knows that it's part of what's getting her a lot of her positions. What she's backing it up with is actually some pretty good acting ability. And she's showing that by getting in the door with her breasts and then showing you that she can act, hence the amount of things that she's been in recently. She's become such a hot topic that when she was on SNL, almost all of her skits involved her breasts or sexuality in some way, shape, or form, turning her into 2024's sex symbol, which is why this discussion in-house got started. SNL dropped that episode and I watched it and just thought it was all kind of funny. And then I watched my news feeds blow up about Sydney Sweeney's breasts. And like I said, I've seen quite a few of the things that she's in, not actually intentionally, because I wasn't going out of my way to watch Sydney Sweeney projects, but she's just in a lot lately. So it's kind of easy to see her in things. But it's funny because when the argument started to blow up about Sydney Sweeney and about the humor that was related to her in the SNL episode, there was a counterpoint that was brought up. Jacob Elordi, also from Euphoria, was on just a few weeks prior to Sydney Sweeney. His entire skits were all about him being a sexy, dumb guy with a ripped set of abs, basically, is what it boiled down to. So the counterpoint quickly came up. Why are we trying to defend Sydney Sweeney, who's okay with this, and we're not trying to defend Jacob Elordi, who's also okay with this? They're both playing into the role, because when you're a sex symbol in Hollywood, it opens a lot of doors. Going back to IMDb's listing of names, everyone on there is in something that I have seen in the last 20 years. It's not a hidden fact that things in Hollywood are weird and shady, but that doesn't matter right now. It's gonna come down to if you can stand the test of time through your acting ability, and it comes down to turning Sydney Sweeney's boobs into politics. It goes into what I said earlier, not everything needs to be political. Sydney Sweeney is okay with how she's being treated in Hollywood, so I don't think we should be turning her into the next political statement when she's not gonna listen to either side of you. She's not going to put on more clothes. She might take more off, but I don't think it's because you told her to. But it just comes down to, again, another dumb thing that everyone's trying to turn into a political argument. I'm guessing because we don't want to argue about actual politics. Because if you actually look into the politics, there's a lot of real bad things going on that we should be debating. And whether or not cleavage is bad is not what I give a shit about at this point. That's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and say it with me one more time and write it in the comments. Sydney Sweeney's boobs.